Hello friends, it's Dr. LeBrun here. In today's edition of Spanish Literature Explained, we're going to be taking a look at La Segunda Carta de Relación, written by Hernán Cortés. So we're going to take a look at why this letter was written, the background information of it, why it's historically important, and maybe historically inaccurate, and then also be taking a look at a text and art comparison practice activity to get you ready for your big test. All right, vamos a empezar. Right, un poco de información sobre el autor. Aquí tenemos Hernán Cortés. Él estudió en la Universidad de Salamanca. Él estudió para ser abogado. Él nació en 1485. Él murió en 1547. Y él llegó a Tenochtitlan, México en 1519. All right, so we're going to be switching back and forth between Spanish and English. So English so that you can understand the information at a deeper level. Spanish so that you can read and write about this information for your big test. The most important information to know about Hernán Cortés is he studied at the University of Salamanca to become a lawyer. So he was really good at creating an argument and writing a persuasive letter. Right, vamos a hablar un poco sobre el movimiento literario, la época colonial. La época viene de los años 1500, describe la conquista y la colonización de las Américas. Un aspecto importante es el mestizo. Es una persona, es una mezcla de un español y una indígena. So, if we're looking at some context clues that are going to let us know that we're talking about the colonial time period. We want to look for writings that talk about the conquest and the colonization of the Americas. Maybe information about mestizos, which is a person that has Spanish and indigenous heritage. All right, unos recursos literarios. So some literary devices to be on the lookout for. Número uno, crónica, una obra histórica en prosa. So a chronicle is something that's historical and written in prose. And notice that I put historical in quotation marks because it might not be 100% historically accurate in the way that we might be accustomed to reading about something in a textbook or a history book. All right, número dos, cronista, una persona que escribe sobre la historia. So a chronicler is somebody who documents what he or she sees pertaining to history. And again, notice that I write la historia in quotation marks because history kind of comes down to the next aspect of somebody's perspective. So número tres, perspectiva, punto de vista del narrador. So the narrator of the story is writing from his or her perspective, which may or may not be historically accurate. And número cuatro, el tema, aquí tenemos sociedades en contacto. So here we have societies in contact would be our theme. All right, vamos a hablar un poco sobre la Segunda Carta de Relación. So here we have the second letter of relation. A Carlos V, el emperador en control de España. So this letter is being written to Carlos V, one of the most powerful people on the planet at this time period, and he was also in control of Spain and Cuba. All right, la primera carta. What about the first letter? Well, many people think that the first letter never existed because there is no evidence that it's ever been found. So some people think that the first letter is just a lie, and we'll take a look at why in just a moment. So, la segunda carta de relación. Hernán Cortés está pidiendo permiso por haber ido desde Cuba a México con los soldados y propiedades de Carlos V sin permiso. So, what's going on with this letter? Well, Hernán Cortés has taken the property, cannons, horses, ships, soldiers of Carlos V without permission. He actually asked the governor of Cuba for permission and was denied, and he took all this stuff anyways, and now he's got to write a pretty darn good letter explaining, justifying why he did what he did. And so in the first letter, he says in the second letter that he had asked for permission and was waiting, and decided now was the opportune time, so he just had to do what he had to do. And hopefully this Carlos V will forgive him for what he's done. Right, proposito de la carta. Da respeto a Carlos V, muy alto y poderoso y muy católico príncipe, invictísimo emperador y señor nuestro. So Hernán Cortés has to show incredible respect to Carlos V because Hernán Cortés could be thrown in jail, he could be executed for what he's done. He's dealing with the most powerful person on planet Earth at this time period. So he begins his letter very high and very powerful, very Catholic prince and undefeated emperor and our Lord. All right, and explica la primera carta. So he's writing in this letter saying what the first letter maybe got lost, maybe there was a hurricane that came up, maybe it sank the mail ship. For whatever reason, he didn't get the first letter. So now Hernán Cortés is writing a second letter. What's the second letter about? Relata la grandeza de la ciudad, los productos del mercado y oro. So now Hernán Cortés is in Tenochtitlan, what is now current-day Mexico City. He's writing about this incredible city of the Aztecs that he's come across. He's writing about all the incredible products that he's never seen before. There could be animals, different types of foods, vegetables, the people, what they're wearing. Just the incredible size of the city, the incredible size of the market. Oh, and by the way, he's found gold, which Carlos V should be very interested in for his wealth, and which Hernán Cortés is also going to be very interested in as well. All right, so now that we understand more about the letter, let's take a look at some background information about how Hernán Cortés was able to conquer the Aztecs. So let's take a look at some of the facts and figures here. Los Aztecas tienen 10 millones inhabitantes con una sociedad de guerreros. Cortés solo tenía 600 soldados, pero con 4 ventajas: lenguas, Quetzalcoatl, enemigos de los Aztecas, caballos, cañones y armas de fuego. All right, so the Aztecs had 10 million inhabitants, and their society was based on warriors. How was Hernán Cortés, with only 600 soldiers, able to defeat them? Well, there's 4 main advantages. So languages, we're going to take a look at a little bit more in depth. Quetzalcoatl, if you know anything about the Aztec religion, was the feathered serpent god, and he was predicted to come back to the Aztecs in the year 1519, and so that bought Cortés a little bit of leeway because they thought, well, maybe this guy's Quetzalcoatl, maybe we should be nice to him, we don't want to upset him, let's just kind of go with this and see where it goes. Then we have to take a look at all the enemies that the Aztecs had. Why would the Aztecs have so many enemies with the other indigenous tribes? We have to remember that they were doing human sacrifices, demanding tribute from the tribes around them, especially the Tlaxcaltecas, and that Hernán Cortés was able to unite all these people, so millions and millions of other indigenous people, to fight against the Aztecs. And then also remember the technological superiority of the Spanish with the horses. So sometimes the Aztecs believed that the horse and the rider were one giant monster. Cannons, firearms, and then also some military strategy on how to organize the battlefield as well. All right, so one of the most important concepts is language. So you're studying language, maybe you're bilingual, maybe you're learning even more languages. Well, 500 years ago, languages were also important on the battlefield and for many other purposes. So Cortés, Espanol, he just had Spanish. Moctezuma II, the leader of the Aztec Empire, he just knew Nahua. But there were a couple other people that were bilingual, and they were able to translate between Spanish and Nahuatl. So we had La Malinche, or Doña Marina. So her indigenous name, Malinche, then the Spanish called her Doña Marina. She knew 2 languages. She knew the languages of the Aztecs, Nahua, and she knew the language of the Maya from the Yucatan Peninsula, Maya. And there was this other Spanish guy, his last name was Aguilar, and he knew 2 languages, so Espanol, because he came from Spain, but then he was shipwrecked on the island of Cozumel, just off the Yucatan Peninsula for a while, for a few years, and during that time period he learned Maya. So going from Aguilar to Malinche, Cortés was able to communicate with indigenous people, and he was also able to understand what Moctezuma was saying in private to the other people. And Moctezuma did not have that advantage. Moctezuma just had Nawa. So being bilingual or multilingual played a huge part in the role of Cortés being able to conquer the Aztec. Now some people think of Malinche as a traitor because she was an indigenous person, but keep in mind she would have been from an enemy tribe of the Aztecs. So just because people were indigenous does not mean that they were all friends. The Aztecs were performing human sacrifices on the enemy and surrounding tribes. All right, so to practice for our big test, just give a try with the text and art comparison. So I want to think about this letter written by Hernán Cortés, La Segunda Carta de Relación, and then compare and contrast that with this artwork by Diego Rivera, La Gran Tenochtitlan. So take a few moments to look at this. I'll take a look at, let's take a look at some of the themes we want to compare and contrast on the next slide, but keep this piece of artwork in mind. All right, so compara y contrastra. All right, número uno, La Segunda Carta de Relación por Hernán Cortés. What was he talking about in his letter? Número dos, La Gran Tenochtitlan por Diego Rivera. So in the previous slide, what was Diego Rivera trying to show? And trace el tema, la civilización azteca. So how do these two men portray the Aztecs from a different perspective differently? All right, so pause the video if you need some time to work. Go back and look at that piece of artwork if you need some time to look at that. And then I'll give you my response in just a moment here. All right, aquí tenemos mi respuesta. Hernán Cortés escribe de las riquezas de los aztecas porque él quiere robar todo. Él escribe del punto de vista europeo. Cortés escribe a Carlos V para defender sus acciones. So what's Hernán Cortés writing about? Well, he's writing about the riches of the Aztecs because he wants to steal and rob everything. And he's writing from his European perspective. And he's writing to Carlos V, defending his actions in taking Carlos V's property to Mexico from Cuba without his permission. All right, Diego Rivera dibuja a los aztecas para dar respeto a su cultura. Ellos tenían una ciudad magnífica. So Diego Rivera really likes the Aztec culture, and many people in Mexico have great pride for the Aztec culture. And so you can see he draws a picture, he paints this beautiful mural of this magnificent Aztec city and their culture. All right, so los aztecas tenían buena arquitectura y buen conocimiento de la agricultura. Sus sacrificios humanos contribuyen a hacer muchos enemigos y a su derrota. So Aztecs did have beautiful architecture and great knowledge of agriculture. They had this concept called chinampas, where these floating islands that they created out of mud and sticks, and that was a great achievement for them. In my opinion, there's these human sacrifices that they were doing led to them having many enemies of the Aztecs, which Hernán Cortés was able to unite, and which led to their eventual downfall. All right, gracias por mirar. Hopefully that helps you get ready for your big test. And hasta pronto. Ciao. Hasta la vista. Nos vemos.